uncertainty or blight. One is privately owned but non-commercial, and we're there right now. Taylor University campus, particularly the north end, that may be a little less flexible to the obvious what it can become. Another one is privately held and commercial, Quimby Village Theater. And the third one is publicly owned. It's Pavilion number 2 over in Foster Park that sits back by the pedestrian bridge over the river to the soccer fields. What are your ideas, whether it's government getting out of the way, government coming up with partnerships, or government stepping in with, I don't know, brownfield grants or something like that? What, do you have any ideas about those areas that can help change our neighborhoods for the better?
The question has to do with improving the viability, I guess, of development for some of these large white elephants, maybe in this area, Taylor University, Quimby Village, the pavilion at Foster Park that's not used. And what are your thoughts for coming up with ways to make those more attractive for development? And I guess we'll start with Mr. Hall.
Okay. On the Taylor, and Steve, you're probably a lot more linked in with this than I am. I don't know how high you are personally on Ambassador as far as going forward. If we're still optimistic that something good is going to come of this, I think the closing got pushed back till the middle of next month or something like that, as they're awaiting some issues on property lines or something like that. But I think you got a real good chance at something there. These guys swing a pretty big capital stick. If anybody doesn't know, this is mayoral candidate Doden's father's sort of organization, and they had done, a lot of their employees and or board members were all, or a lot of them are Taylor people, not necessarily Taylor Fort Wayne, but Taylor Upland maybe. So I think you got a pretty reasonable chance of something coming of this. You know, the Bible college was where it was at for me as a 4th grader coming home, and where are we going to go play football after school? If it wasn't my front yard, it was likely the Bible college, and even that might involve the Swihart kids too. It's sort of an offshoot group. Quimby Village, the guy that was in on that, as I understand it, I haven't been in it, they had put in a bunch of money in that. He was going to convert it into some sort of Latin Caribbean themed dance club, and then that guy got chased out of town by the feds, as I understand it. So there's been some work done in there. If somebody's maybe wanting to be in the nightclub business, it might work out. Again, you know, in our business, you know, my grandfather sold Old Man Quimby that property in 1945 to finance a restaurant in 1946. So it's been over there forever. You know, it's inextricably linked with the health of the neighborhoods around it. The more you've got good, solid working class people with disposable dollars in this neighborhood, the better chance we've got to continue, and the better chance that somebody else has got a chance at doing something with the rest of Quimby Village. As far as the pavilion in Foster Park, you know, that's classic city infrastructure business. Those are the guys that need to be in there. If we have something that is determined to be an asset, and we're determined to keep it, we've got to figure out a way to determine to keep it up and keep it useful, and keep it as an asset as opposed to a liability. I mean, an awful lot of people walk the golf course back there, see that guy sitting there. It's been, my kids were over playing, when they were doing soccer over at Foster West, we'd end up over there kind of trotting around, and you know, it can look a little shady, like there might be some, you know, neighborhood toughs over there doing their thing from time to time. But you know, it's just another piece of the city puzzle, and what a city does well, maintaining parks is one of them.
Mr. Paddock.
Well, thank you. That's a very thoughtful question, and I want to say one thing. I think this is something that city government can get directly involved in, and something that we can exercise, which I think is appropriate. I mean, I want to make sure that whatever happens here fits the guidelines and the historic integrity, as we talked about earlier, of the surrounding neighborhoods. I don't want hope I don't offend anybody with this, but I don't want a Walmart distribution center coming into this university or Quimby Village or the other property that you mentioned. So I think government can play a proper role there as far as making sure that zoning is upheld and making sure that we put something in here that is compatible with what we had before. I have had the opportunity as a candidate to run into some of the other candidates at various functions, and I had a nice talk with Eric Doden one time, and he gave me a number to call and a person to call, and I was hoping to talk with that person before tonight's meeting so I could get kind of a personal update on what their plans might be for this. Unfortunately, he and I haven't connected yet, but I think that is something that's important, whether it's his business or whether it's somebody else, that we have a use that is compatible with what we had before, and it preserves the integrity of the surrounding neighborhoods, whether it's this facility here, whether it's the Quimby Village, or whether it's the Pavilion over at the Parks Department now, or at Foster Park. Now, I don't know if that's the one that Julie Donnell raised a lot of money for to try to rehabilitate or not. Maybe that's at another park, but I do know, again, the private sector coming forward, working with the government, in this case the Parks Department, has raised a lot of money for parks and for preservation of old historic pavilions. This sounds like if it hasn't been addressed, that it would fit right into that category.
Mr. Ferguson.
As I mentioned earlier on one of the other questions, I don't like to see anything be torn down or anything to go away. And I would like to keep all of this stuff. The Taylor University campus is going to be a big thing to have to do something with, but we need to find new uses for old buildings. And I'm not really sure what to do with Taylor, but it needs to be something that would be in keeping with the character of the neighborhood. And as far as the pavilion at Foster Park, I've seen that back there. My dog and I go back there a lot and go over that bridge. And that's a pretty good eyesore back there, but it needs a little bit of fixing up, I think. And put some tables in there, and maybe somebody would use it. It's just sits back here and it's not being used, but there's no way anyone can use it because it's not set up for anything. So maybe if they had some picnic tables inside, maybe some outside, put a new roof on it, maybe someone would use that back there for picnics. I think they probably would. I'm not really sure about the Quimby Village. I can remember going to the Clyde Theater when I was a boy, and there's no way I want that place to go away either. But like I say, we have to find new uses for old places.